Hi everyone. So in my previous video, I had posted about the project that we just completed, and I did give a high-level overview of the numbers. But in this video in particular, I'm going to be going and deep diving into the actual numbers. I'll be bringing up my spreadsheet. I'll be going through all the numbers, and as much as possible, I've tried to capture every penny that was spent on the project so that you guys can have a realistic view of the actual numbers. So let's get right into the video. Okay, so here's the spreadsheet. So like I mentioned, we purchased the property for £35,000, and the total refurb carried out on the project was just short of £25,000. And again, that included we doing new electrics throughout the whole property. We had to buy a new boiler. We had to rerun the central heating system network. Also the basics, rip outs, new carpets, new plasterboards, new kitchen, new bathroom, and of course labor cost. So everything came to about £25,000. So for stamp duty, that's zero, because again, for any property in UK that falls below the £40,000 threshold, that is exempted from stamp duty. So little savings there. Our solicitor charged us about 1,974. Evidently, this wasn't an auction property, so that section is zero. Broker fee came to about 750. Surveyor, because we had to carry like a level 2 survey on the property, and this is always important, especially when you're buying a property of your own. Don't just assume everything is all right. Get a professional surveyor in there, let them carry out an extensive inspection. So level 2 is always okay because it goes more than the visual. They try to see a bit of the structural integrity too. And at least at the end of the day, we got a good go ahead, a green light from the surveyor that everything was good. The only things they raised was the damp concern that was spotted in some areas of the property, and of course that was addressed during our refurb. So we also had to do a bit of damp proving. Because for bridging loan, that came to about 536, and usually this is always higher. The bridging loan we got for this property is for a duration of 12 months, and the cost captured there is just the interest on that bridging loan. That's what has been captured. Because, so for example, when the purchase price is £35,000, right? The expectation is that you bring 25% of that amount, then you get a bridger or a lender to give you the 75% of that amount. So that's the amount borrowed, the 75%. However, they will charge an interest on that amount on a monthly basis. So what I've captured here is the interest paid so far for about 2 months. So initially, when I run this analysis, I do it for about 6 months, because the expectation is, worst case scenario, you should be done with your refurb and you should have it ready to be tenanted and a tenant in the property within 6 months. You get? So I always run my analysis for 6 months. Although the bridging loan is up to 12 months, right? But in this particular case study, in this particular property, by the 3rd month, which is going to be next month, we already have a tenant coming in, meaning we only had to pay the bridging interest from our pocket for only about 2 months. So the cost you're seeing here is just the cost of bridging interest for 2 months. And that really, increased our returns on this investment, because we only had to pay interest from our pockets for just 2 months. So now these sections that I've captured in red, these are things you don't usually see on a basic deal analysis sheet. But during the course of, conveyancing, there are different costs coming up. And again, like I said, I try to capture almost every penny that was spent on this property. So we spent about £40 for the valuation fee. They just did like a desktop valuation, and that came to about £40. Again, appraisal fee to £50. Now you need to get a building insurance, even though you don't have a tenant in there. The fact that you own the property, you need to get a building insurance. And again, as you're going to be carrying out works, the refurb works in the property, you need to get a building insurance. And that came to about £342. And that's for a whole period of 1 year. So when you do have a tenant into the property, you now need to change from that to a landlord insurance, which I will be changing soon. So this part of, the registration fee, land registration fee, that was about £45. Winding up such £30,000 MRO1 charge this fee. So these are more of the additional costs that were coming in from the solicitor, apart from their actual fee, which I didn't capture in the beginning, but as much as possible, I ensured that every penny that was spent was captured there. Again, I had to get an independent legal advisor at some point, because if you're buying in a company, right, if the director of the company is standing as the guarantor for the company, so the company itself is an entity, the director in the company is an individual, is an entity, different entity from the company. So if you have a solicitor representing a company, you need to have another solicitor or a legal advisor representing the director. And that was the cost for that. That costed about £180. So they need your independent legal advisor to sign on behalf of the director as witness on some of this documentation. Landlord licensing fee. So the area where the property was purchased is an area that is covered under the selective licensing scheme. So for that, it's expected for you to rent a property in that particular area, you need to pay a landlord licensing fee of £585, which was never factored initially at the beginning of the project. But these are some of the things, that happen when you are running a project, and why it's always important to have enough buffer for your contingency. So the main thing they are trying to do with the scheme is to ensure that that there's a minimum good standard for every property that is being put on the market for a tenant. So they are looking at your gas certificate, your electric certificate, and ensuring that you are compliant with those minimum standards. You are also going to be putting your EPC certificate in there too. So all those things are what they look, and when they say that, all right, this is good enough to be tenanted, they issue you the license. But as soon as you apply, you're actually good to get a tenant in there. And the EPC cert costed us about £60. So again, the property was an EPC-E when we bought the property, but with the refurb we have done, we have been able to upgrade that EPC rating to a C. And the cost for that was the cost for certification and confirmation of the new rating was £60.
Quick pause, hit subscribe and join a community of property investors that are getting insider knowledge that most people pay thousands for. The next video might just be the breakthrough that you need. Don't miss it. Hit subscribe now.
So when we look at the total purchase cost out of pocket that we needed, everything came to £65,152. So mind you, the money you yourself will be bringing out of your pockets, and as you can see, which is captured in the section below, is like about 40,000. Here is 40,976. The difference here is just with the purchase price. Remember, I'm only going to be paying 25% of that purchase price. So if I do 25% of the purchase price, which is this. So I'm only meant to be bringing 8,750 of the purchase price from my pocket. The lender will be giving me this remaining of the 75%. So if I had this 8,750 to all the other cost here, aside the purchase cost, that what's going to give me 40,976. So that's the total capital I need to get to run this project. I think that's clear. Okay, so what's captured here is we have a section for running cost, and this is just more like the holding cost. So when you get the property, you put the utilities and the energy, the council tax, everything goes under your name. And again, whether you're living in the property or not, those bills, they start rolling. Your council tax, you have to start paying it, and so is your energy bills. Again, like I said, we're within the space of 2 months, we're able to quickly complete the refurb, and by month 3, the tenants will be going in there, meaning by the 3rd month, the tenants will be responsible for all this cost. So we only had to pay for the first 2 months. And those are the costs that have been captured here. We paid 408 for the council tax for the 2 months that we are holding the property. And the utility or energy bills came to about 131. So a total of £539 was paid for, the running cost of the property. So I think that's the first section. So what this section shows is it shows all the amounts that you need to spend, your total purchase cost, right? Which is about 65,152. So if you were not bridging, that's the total amount you will spend out of your pocket. But because I was able to get a lender to give me 75% of the purchase cost of the property, I only needed to have about £40,976 to run the project. And so that's that. Now, let's go to the section of the rental income in the area. And the property was able to command a rental rate of 625. And this has already been signed with the tenants coming in. So from next month, they'll start paying £625 per month. So when the tenant is there and, you refinance, you need to think of, so the monthly rent is your inflow, right? What is your outflow on a monthly basis? That's what's captured on your monthly cost. So the first is the management fee, except if you want to handle the management yourself. But usually management companies, they charge 10% of the rent. So that is about 62.5 to be precise. Also, you need to get a landlord insurance, like I mentioned earlier. So roughly, you should be able to get something within 25 to 30. So, I've captured £30 there. Then your mortgage payments. Now, based on the calculation when we refinance, this should come to about £227. And the way I got that is, now for us to, when you're working on a deal, right, it's important for you to know the end value from day one. So when we saw this property, we knew that by the time we're done with refurb and all that, we should be able to get at least barest minimum for that property about £70,000. So it's from the £70,000 you start working backwards to know if it's a good deal for you. So if the property is going to be worth about £70,000 when we refinance, right? That's what we have captured here. The refinance bit, we are assuming is going to be revalued at £70,000. Hopefully we get it higher, but let's be conservative. And interest rates. I know interest rate is about maybe 4% right now. With the Iran war that has been happening, things have been volatile. And before, interest rates were coming down. Now, they went back up again. And at the time, we are going to be locking in the refinance. Honestly, I have no idea what the interest rate is going to be by then. But I have put 5%, and that's what I always put in my analysis, because I try to put it as maybe the worst case scenario. So if for now people are still getting interest rates of about maybe 4% or so, or 4.2, if we put it at 5, it's more like stress testing it. Does the deal still work? If it works, then you know that you have a good deal in your hand. So we have put like 5% interest rate. So based on a refinance, a revaluation of 70 and an interest rate of 5%, that brought our monthly repayment to about 227, based on the assumption, right? So I think that's clear. And that's when you had everything here, it brings your total monthly cost to £320 per month. So when you subtract 320 from 625, it means your monthly cash flow is going to be 305, which is not bad at all. You're getting 305 repeatedly every month for a property you bought at £35,000. That's not bad at all. So in a year, you should be averaging about £3,665,000 from that property. So I think that's clear. The other costs that are captured here are just cost of, that comes with refinance, your broker fee, your valuation fee, and all that. So let's go to the returns, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to see how much is coming back to you, how long it will take for you to break even, and how much you actually you have left in the deal. So let me start with the amount you have left in the deal, right? So when we talk about the amount left in the deal, in a way, I see that as the actual amount you have spent in getting that property. And this is how it's calculated, right? So when you refinance, right? Now, with this example, we have said property should be worth 70,000 when they revalue it based on the work we have done and based on the standard of the property now. The property should be worth 70,000. So when you refinance, you are borrowing off that new value, 70,000, right? So you are taking about 75% of 70,000, and that is going to give you about 52,500, right? So from the 52,500, what do? You pay back your bridging loan. So for the money left in the deal, this is one of the most important numbers, right? Because it's essentially the amount you have practically used to buy that property. So here we are saying the money left in the deal is about 13,000. I will explain how I got that value. But when we say 13,000, what it actually means is I have just 13,000 tied to that property. So it means I was able to get that property with just £13,000 when you think about it. So the money left in the deal is simple. The total purchase cost, which is all the money you had to put into the deal. Over here, we said it was about 65,000, right? Yeah. And when we now refinance, because now we are saying, we have done the reform, the property is worth about £70,000, right? So when we do that, we are able to refinance and borrow money of the new value, which is always about 75% of the new value. So when we borrow 75% of the new value, that gives us about 52,000-ish, around that range, right? So when we had all that cost and all that, that can affect the total value, but on the average, it will be around 52,000-ish. So when you subtract your total money that you have put into the property and the money you're able to get back from refinancing, that gives you the amount you have left in the deal. So the smaller that number, the better the deal. And sometimes there are some deals they call the unicorn deals that by the time you refinance, you're practically getting all the money that you put into the deal back. So for example, let's say we refinanced and we were able to get about 65,000 from it. That would have been a unicorn deal because it means we practically got all the money we invested in it back. And we have zero amount left in the deal. We practically got the property for free. Those are unicorn deals. They are becoming very rare to find nowadays. But some years back, you used to see one or two, maybe in some few months, but now it's kind of very rare to see unicorn deals. So that explains it. Now we have just £13,000 left in that deal. Now the total return of investment is simple. Is how much are we getting on an annual basis versus how much we have left in the deal. So when you do in this case 3,665 divided by 13,000 plus, that gives you roughly about 28% return on investment, which is a fantastic return. And based on that analysis, it means if we keep getting that annual rent in about 3.6 years, we would have broken even, would have had the money we have left in the deal back. So when we look at this analysis, it's obvious this is a great deal, cash flowing 305 on a monthly basis, and about 3 to 4 years, you have broken even. So this is how deals are analyzed, and this is done before buying the deal. You need to run these numbers, do your forecast, and use comparable evidence. When you're looking at similar properties that are in good shape, look at properties that have similar layouts, the same number of bedrooms, that are within the same area, usually within a quarter-mile radius. Those are properties you need to use as your comparables, because when you do that, you are always sure of being right on your estimated end value, which is very important. So I hope this video has been helpful. Again, remember to like and subscribe as you join me on this property journey of mine. Again, if you're interested in getting deals like this, I help people source deals. I also help with the full end-to-end project management of the refurb itself. So if you're interested, just reach out to me via any of my social media platforms. Thank you, and I see you in the next one.